What's good, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth, to a Thanksgiving edition of Disguise Coverage, the only podcast that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin, presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, and that is One Pie Pizza. Find the online menu in the episode show notes, whether here on YouTube or whichever podcasting app or platform you're listening to this show on. I am your host, Anthony. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Find me on Blue Sky at pro_ant. No underscores on the Blue Sky because they don't allow that. So it's just at pro_ant, PROANT. Find me over there if Blue Sky is your thing. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you folks tuning in, whether you're watching live now, whether you're watching on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever have you. It is Thanksgiving week, a bit of a holiday theme in this episode tonight off of the regularly scheduled, matchup episode that we do in season. But happy Thanksgiving to all you folks. Hope you are enjoying the week if you observe the holiday and ready to cram in some football and some food and all of that good stuff. Thank you for tuning in again, whether you're watching live, watching later, listening, podcasting apps, platforms, all of that kind of stuff. In this episode, pretty straightforward. I think this is, again, I thought it was a fun idea, I hope, to kind of tie in the holiday and tie in really kind of how this Bills season has gone. Them sitting at 9-2, coming out of the bye week, looking to course correct and kind of batten down the hatches for the regular season stretch and then push into the playoffs. I really thought there was a variety of outcomes that this team could have. I thought if all things went well, I could see them being like a 3 or 4 loss team. I thought if things didn't go so well, it'd be like 6 or 7 losses. If things really went off the rails, maybe like 8 or 9 losses. But I thought somewhere between 3 to 4 losses all the way up to like 6 or 7. And, the injuries that this team has fought through, the schedule that they've had, and what they've overcome, the new players coming in, new full-time coordinators on each side, new position coaches on the entirety of the defensive side of the ball, all of the things that they've kind of been able to mitigate and piece together and put all into one to be 9-2 at this spot in the season. I really hope I'm not jinxing them by saying everything I'm about to say. And I thought, given all of that and given the potential of where they could be right now, instead of being 9-2, all within this, I've never said rebuild, but all within this kind of revamp type of year. This wasn't a full teardown. This wasn't a full rebuild or a reset, but it was a bit of a revamp, changing and tweaking some body types and some philosophical and some identity pieces on both sides of the ball. Again, the new coaches, players, all of that stuff, moving in that vein and in that direction. I think there was a realistic shot where you're sitting here 11 games in and you're not 9-2. Maybe you're 6-5, maybe you're 7-4, but I think things have gone relatively well. And I thought within that and within the Thanksgiving mood and theme of this week, I wanted to go through and kind of go with what I'm thankful for with this Buffalo Bills team, player-wise, position-wise, coaching pieces, structural elements. We're going to get through a bunch of it. And for those of you joining me live, I'd love to hear your answers as well. I want to make this as interactive as possible in the holiday episode. So if you've got things that you're thankful for in this team, whether it's a certain player, whether it's a position group, whether it's a certain moment in a certain game, anything and everything is available to be spoken about on this show. Put it up into the chat. I will bring them up as we go through. If you are not watching live, feel free to put your answers into the YouTube comments. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, you can comment actually in like the review section if you want, or if you want to get at me on Twitter, get at me on Blue Sky, whatever have you, feel free to put kind of whatever comments you want into there in terms of what you're thankful for. Yeah, and I think this will be a pretty fun episode. I'm kind of excited for it. We'll get through. I'm going to go through mine. I've got 5, but they kind of are overarching a little bit. I try to combine as many into, broader terms and topics while getting into the details with bullet points rather than listing out like 15 niche details. I try to combine things as much as humanly possible in order to kind of streamline things here. If you are enjoying this episode or if you have enjoyed previous episodes, please drop a like on this video as we start to go forward here. I'm going to grab some comments already. Joe was the first one in here, and Joe says, things I'm thankful for: the Bills, cheesecake, play action, and the cheese to sauce ratio. The cheese to sauce ratio, of course, a reference to the sponsor of the show, One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Homemade blue cheese, great cheese to sauce ratio on the pie, cup of char pepperoni, just really tremendous stuff. Also, in the middle of their Toys for Tots drive, I will be pulling up a graphic for that later with the incentives and prizes and all that kind of stuff. Appreciate Joe being here and for showing some love. in the inside joke world for the sponsor. Kay Mori saying, I'm thankful for the equal number of blueberries in each muffin as a person of Middle Earth. Well done. I appreciate you referencing the intro. I also appreciate love for the intro. I've gotten I think most people are cool with it. I've gotten some really negative and hateful comments towards the intro, so it's nice to kind of see where people are at. RJ saying, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. It would be amazing if the Bills could clinch the division on Sunday night. Oh, I'm always torn a little. I'm always up for clinching as early as possible so you can rest guys and take your foot off the gas where possible. But I also like the idea of kind of just staying sharp and having to play every week as if it's your last going forward. So I'm always torn a little bit, but I'm a high floor kind of guy. Take what you can get. If they could clinch as early as possible, would love that. Charles coming in and saying, thankful for Kromer, Brady, and Babbage. Very fair. Ooh, love this comment from Jonah saying, one pie is goated. They absolutely are. Ooh, question here from Aiden saying, how worried are you about a 49ers trap game? Sure, they are hurt, but I think they should not be overlooked. I completely agree. We'll see how the injuries progress going forward. I'm going to talk about a couple pieces tonight, potentially, as we go forward, but I still don't think you can overlook them. There are quality players on both sides of the ball for the Niners. I know they have underachieved this year, and the injuries, like you mentioned, Aiden, have been a significant part of that. They haven't been as sharp schematically in a lot of areas. Again, I think that's tied to, the injuries, especially up front on the defensive line and, the changes from last year, who they are this year, being banged up in the secondary at different points. Then again, offensively and how that kind of ties in from a game script perspective. But yeah, I'm not overlooking the 49ers in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, I don't think it's as tough of a matchup as I did when the schedule first came out. I was looking at this game as kind of the hardest game on the schedule, really, just from a previous year going into this one. Depending on how you look at Kansas City and San Francisco, again, coming into the season, but the Bills had success against Kansas City. I really thought the Niners were a real strong squad on both sides of the ball. Potentially, again, defensively, they changed coming into the season. And then I think after the schedule came out, we saw the changes they went through defensively, and things haven't really worked out for them on that side of the ball compared to the bar that I think is normally set for them. Then the injuries on offense and how everything's kind of snowballed. I'm not overlooking them. I still think they're a team that can get you. Obviously, they're just not as strong as kind of the anticipation for them was earlier in this season. Daniel saying, I think the Bills were 6-5 at this point last year. Also says, go Bills. Happy Thanksgiving, Bills fans. Like that from Daniel. Yeah, I think they were 6-5, 6-6, somewhere in that range. I remember them being 6-6 and then going on the win streak coming out of the bye, which is very nice. Ralph saying, thankful for a great dead cap season. Hey, if you can have a bunch of dead cap and a revamp and be 9-2 and being, the only team to knock off the Chiefs so far this year, I think that's not bad. Aaron saying, thankful for the development of young talent that was either behind former starters or rookies coming in. That's going to be happening in this episode. I'm going to speak on that. Aiden, I'm thankful for an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. Absolutely. Well done. Well done. Kay Mori says, Ann is thankful for how they defend mesh on fourth down. I love the references to previous episodes and previous things that have happened. So I appreciate you being here, Kay Mori, and for obviously watching last week. That comment from Kay Mori is a reference to one of the segments I did with Joe Marino last week when he was on the show in terms of like favorite moments or plays from the year. My answer, along with Joe, was the Josh Allen run, the scramble for the touchdown against Kansas City last week. But just to kind of give a differing thought, a little niche detail that I loved was, how they've been passing off mesh when in cover one, no pun intended, coverage there. And Joe kind of let me have it for being super detailed and niche with that. But very, very funny. Well done, Kay Mori. I like that. Thank you. Joe saying, I think I'll start with Shakir. Thankful for him as both a safety blanket for Josh, but for also being a staple in an offense that has an identity of generating yak. Yes, the Bills are 6th in yards after catch, as Joe indicates there. Shakir's been a significant part of that. I'm going to talk about Shakir a little bit throughout this episode. But just seeing what he's become in terms of being an easy button. Joe uses the phrase safety blanket there, whether it's easy button, safety blanket, go-to guy. He really just has had such a strong impact on this offense. And in a year where Kincaid has been banged up and hasn't produced at the level you wanted. Curtis Samuel got banged up. Keon Coleman, you're wanting him to develop and refine and add some polish to his game in a multitude of ways. And then you bring in Amari Cooper. He's got to get adjusted to the playbook. He gets banged up. Khalil Shakir really has kind of been that stabilizing force on the offense along with the run game. But from a passing perspective, it's been Khalil Shakir. And when you consider how low his average depth of target and average depth of catch are, again, I'm going to go into some of these numbers because he's one of my pieces in this episode that I'm thankful for. He's really made a lot on his own, and Allen's been able to find him early and often. Brady schemed him up, but so much of it is just Khalil Shakir doing Khalil Shakir things and making plays with the ball. And yeah, he's been a significant part of why the Bills are finally kind of generating some yards after catch and having more easy buttons and kind of ease in terms of being streamlined and flow for Josh Allen and this offense as a whole. Charles saying equal blueberries in each muffin. I was going Casino reference. Absolutely. That is from Casino. Casino is my favorite mob movie. It's one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Yes. Equal blueberries in each muffin is 1000% a Casino reference. Oh, very nice. Jordan saying thankful for cover 1. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Jordan. That's awesome. Aiden saying, more importantly, have you tried the Cinnamon Toast Crunch waffle variation? No, I have not. That sounds delicious. I didn't realize that was a thing. Oh, Cinnamon Toast Crunch into a waffle variation? I got to get on this. I haven't had Cinnamon Toast Crunch forever. I've been on the Honey Nut Cheerios kick, which I never was before. And I've been riding that hard. Jason saying, we need to invent a cover 1 beanie for Ant. I would take that. Yeah, I pretty much just rock Carhartt beanies all the time, and then I turn them, and not on purpose, but I always just kind of wear my beanies with the logo to the side. I would take a cover 1 beanie, absolutely. Jason saying, also, I'm expecting big things from the tree this year. Nice Thanksgiving theme right now. The regular season starts Friday. So, yes, had the fall theme tree. One, I want to give another shout out to the Halloween tree for October. That was one of my favorite, the way it filled out, the way it looked, the garland, the aesthetic, everything came out really nice. Then we had a bit of a fall theme just in general with the garland. And then we changed it today. Actually, I'll pull down the, the brand there. Kind of changed it a little bit, added a different garland. The wife did it, changed some things in the background with some more fall themes, some Thanksgiving themes. So yeah, I think it's a good look right now. I appreciate you recognizing that, Jason. 94.2% of the reason why I do this show is so I can show the tree on the background, in the background. So yeah, absolutely. Jonah saying, please no Purdy, Bosa, or Williams this Sunday. Let's clinch the AFC East, boys. Fingers closed. Aiden saying, did you ever talk with the Buffalo Plus guys? Would you ever do a collab with them? I think they have an interesting perspective being media on the field. Yeah, I always think there's, interesting perspective with anybody who's like a beat reporter and has that media or on-field perspective. I'm always open, to different opportunities. I have not done anything with them. I've talked with Feats every once in a while, but haven't ever done anything with them officially. Oh, this is awesome from Jason saying, thank you for the cover 1 film breakdowns. Now nothing bothers me on the internet because I know the truth and I don't need to care about false narratives. I have a new sense of zen as a fan. I like that. I like that a lot. That's awesome. Aiden saying, Honey Nut Cheerios with bananas. Yeah, I'll put some bananas in the Honey Nut Cheerios. I also like Special K with the strawberries, of course. I can't just have plain. I'll eat Honey Nut Cheerios by themselves, even sometimes not even in the milk. I just think they're good to like snack on. But yeah, Honey Nut Cheerios by themselves or obviously with milk or adding some bananas or some fruit in there. All about that. Charles saying, how we cooking the turkey? Smoked, oven, or deep fried? Doing the oven turkey. I've never done a smoked turkey. Done the deep fried. I haven't done it. Family has done it. And it was good. I just don't think it was worth the effort for everyone to do the deep fried. And I've got, my wife and the other older relatives in my family who just cook a mean turkey in the oven. And so that's what we're rocking with again this year. Aiden saying, what about a Josh leaping the tree ornament? I could add more ornaments to the tree. All I ever do is add the little topper. There's one on there right now that says, we interrupt this marriage to bring you football. You just can't really see it. And then I'll do obviously a Christmas type of deal. But yeah, I've never done any ornaments other than that. I should consider that. Joe saying, since cereal was brought up, top 5 cereals that I'm thankful for: Honey Nut Cheerios, Reese's Puffs, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Frosted Cheerios, French Toast Crunch. That's a quality list. I've never had Reese's Puffs. I've never done Frosted Cheerios, and I've never done French Toast Crunch. I love Honey Nut Cheerios. I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch. I'm also a big Frosted Flakes guy. But yeah, I've just been on this Honey Nut Cheerios kick. I don't know why. They're just like really good. They're simple. They're good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, Aiden likes your list, Joe. Yeah. Steve says, spatchcock and smoke the turkey. You will never eat it any other way. I might have to bring this up. I think it's too late to settle into that this year. I might bring it up for next year. Yeah, I've never had Reese's Puff cereal. I'm a big Reese's guy, like the mini cups, not the big cups. I think the peanut butter to chocolate ratio is better than the minis. But yeah. K. Mori said, always been a corn brand square guy. Well, hey, very nice. Very nice. Oh, Charles saying smoked turkey's the way to go. We do two, one smoked and one in the oven. I like that. Actually, I should kind of propose that. I like where this has gone. It's just pure Thanksgiving talk and cereal talk at this point, which is what everyone tuned in for. But I'm okay with it. I like it. Jason saying, I'm thankful for Aunt's wife in the most respectful way possible. So cool to have a partner who puts effort into things that matter to you. Thanks, pro_wife. I like that. Yeah, she's awesome. Appreciate the shout out. She'll be pumped to see this. Joe saying Reese's Puffs are 10 out of 10. Cannot recommend them enough. Huh. I'm apparently gonna have to try Reese's Puffs, and then I'm gonna have to try a smoked turkey. I like the idea of the smoked turkey. This is fun. This is fun. I like this. I'm gonna throw up the banner for the first Bills related topic that I am thankful for. But folks, feel free. Whatever you're thankful for, Bills related, cereal things, anything else. This is a fun episode. Again, I know what we normally do in season here with the matchups and breaking down the scheme, structure, X's and O's, all that stuff of what will decide who wins each Bills game. But I thought given the holiday, a little bit of a lighter mood atmosphere. Plus, I know a lot of people are traveling and doing family stuff this week. So who's able to tune in, who's not? I thought this would be a fun, a little bit more of a laid back type episode. So again, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, anything you got, throw it up into the chat. The first piece that I'm going to go through in terms of being thankful for with related to this Bills team is yikes. Already 16 minutes in, I've had two flubs already. I'm falling apart. Bills offensive line coach, Aaron Kromer. I talked about it a bit in the offseason on this show, on other shows that I appeared on. I felt like last year, the offensive line finally got to a spot where they were good. They were competent to good in pass pro. And then we saw what they could be on the ground. Their ability to have success on the ground from a non-Josh Allen perspective, the diversity in the run game that they had. I was really happy with the offensive line and what it was last year. And then you look at the depth, having Ryan Bates as kind of a super sub with what he can do, having David Edwards as a sixth offensive lineman. And then that changed this offseason. Bates goes bye-bye. Mitch Morse goes bye-bye. You take Connor McGovern, you move him from left guard to center. David Edwards becomes your starter at left guard. And I thought Edwards would do well, and he has, I think, for the most part. He was a starter on that Rams team that won the Super Bowl. He is an Aaron Kromer disciple. He knows what Kromer expects and what Kromer is looking for. And he was, again, on the team last year and in the system and did well. And McGovern, it wasn't the craziest thing to move him from left guard to center. We talked on the show and in the film room about how he has traits and a skill set that would work well at center, and that move and the potential positives and pros that it could offer this Bills offensive line versus what Mitch Morse brought, even though Morse was fantastic here. But I think you had the potential for a bit of a drop-off in this offensive line this year, kind of seeing, just the new moving parts, the new pieces, and kind of how it all went together. But I think it's been a seamless transition this year. They're top 10 in pass pro efficiency. They're around or in the top 10 for most run game metrics, accounting for Josh Allen and not accounting for Josh Allen if you're just looking at running back carries, and kind of seeing what they can do in terms of EPA per rush and DVOA and all of these aspects. And then you combine that again with being a solid group in terms of pass protection. And you got to tie that to Aaron Kromer. And I also think by extension, you see the tight ends. You see guys like Dawson Knox who are exhibiting the hand usage techniques that he teaches to his offensive linemen. So you're seeing that translate to Knox and some of the other tight ends. It kind of like how you saw it translate to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods when Kromer was in LA with how they would block, especially when they were attached to the line of scrimmage. And then you look at the development pieces, Spencer Brown, how he's progressed technically, and his snatch trap mimicking and mirroring Deion Dawkins's more often than not, the development and the trajectory that he's on. You look at again how seamless the move was for Connor McGovern, David Edwards, Anderson's development into a real quality sixth offensive lineman, and how he's being able to be used. Osiris Torrance being able to kind of blend being that physical bruising type of mauler, but still being able to move well enough and exhibit technique to the point where he's not just vulnerable in a turnstile versus speed or speed to power or agility on the inside. You look at that grouping again, and Also, no jinx. They've been very lucky that they've been healthy again for the majority of this year, like they were last year. You had the same starting five for the entirety of the year. We've had that this year. Again, for the Buffalo Bills, Spencer Brown out for the Kansas City Chiefs game, obviously, but even Ryan Vandermark going in and not being this huge vulnerability to the point where you're noticing him on every rep and on every snap. I think he had some more struggles than were documented by most folks, and than necessarily the metrics and numbers indicate. I think he only, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he only registered like 2 pressures and 2 QB hits. He had the second best pass blocking efficiency of the starting 5 offensive linemen in that game against the Chiefs. So I don't think he played bad. I think he wasn't as amazing as kind of people made it out to be. But the fact that he was able to go in there and it wasn't just like, oh man, Karlaftis is giving him work. Oh man, they're lining up Chris Jones on him on passing downs, just going after him. Or even, Dana, and if Uche went after him, if they took Chanel, and just there wasn't anything crazy where you were like, oh man, Spencer Brown is out, Ryan Vandermark's in there, and I'm noticing it on every play because there's a hole at right tackle. And just this offensive line has continued to be a stabilizing piece for this team in both the pass game, in terms of their pass protection. I know they've gotten gamed up a bit at times, especially against Baltimore, but what they've been in terms of pass protection and what they've been on the ground game has been tremendously important. And again, I think you have to tie that into Aaron Kromer, especially when you start to see his offensive line techniques and teachings starting to bleed into other position groups like the tight ends, which matter a lot in this offense with how much the Bills go with those heavier personnel formations in attaching tight ends to the line of scrimmage and increasing that surface area to be able to get to more in the run game. It's been a great piece. And again, Kromer, I think, is one of the best in the business. He doesn't get the love or the shine that Callahan gets or Stoutland gets or even Andy Heck up there in Kansas City. But, man, just the job that this Bills group has done in terms of technique, diversity, versatility, pass pro, run game stuff, and just how they've solidified again for the second year in a row and really just improved year after year. It's been really nice to see. And again, I think you got to tip your cap to the players, obviously, but Aaron Kromer is a huge piece of that. I'm very thankful for him. Loved the signing when they brought him in. Again, one of the best in the business, just doesn't get the shine that others do. So yeah, very thankful for him. Like this comment here from Jason. And I was thinking about this earlier today. Jason says, I think healthy is also technique. They aren't in bad body positions and other dudes aren't failing their assignment and causing D linemen to fall into their fellow offensive linemen. Jason saying with asterisk, causing D linemen. I knew what you meant. At first I read it as coughing and I was like, no, he's got to mean causing. What's funny is I thought of that earlier, like not necessarily in the same vein, but the idea of with how healthy they've been for the second year in a row at a position that does not stay healthy. And again, major no jinx here. You folks know how superstitious I am. But with how healthy they've been for the second year in a row at offensive line, a position that it's just so easy to get banged up, to get rolled up on, lower body, upper body. It's so easy. I was thinking earlier today when I was putting this episode together, or putting the finishing touches on, I should say, I was kind of thinking to myself of like, I wonder if there's something to it from a technique standpoint or just from a systemic or schematic standpoint or structurally, like how they operate that lends itself to kind of naturally keeping them healthier and not suffering injuries, because it's just unreal for 2 years in a row at this point, again, no jinx, to not have any injuries at that spot or any significant ones. Again, Brown missed the KC game, but just you didn't really feel it too much, which was one, a good thing, but two, just like you're not missing, oh, so-and-so's been out for 4 games, or they haven't had the whole right side of the line for this many games, or they had to move these people around because these 2 guys got hurt or one guy. It's just, it's been really impressive to see how they've been continuously healthy. And Jason saying luck is obviously the main thing, but sometimes injury happens due to poor play. No, completely agree. If you get out leveraged, or if your hands are in the wrong position or your feet aren't in the right position and you get caught, not even somebody running into you, but if you get torqued the wrong way, or you have to, you're out of position to the point that you have to overcompensate with another body part, and you're putting stress on ligaments and tendons and muscles and joints to course correct for being out of position like you are. I think that's actually a very plausible thing and not just saying it. So I like that. I like that. What else? Let's go back and see some of another one from Jason on the O-line saying, the questions we had about the changes to O-line, Kromer is clearly listened to by the organization. Also, big props last week doing without Brown. The group is bought in. I would agree with that. Jotman saying Torrance gets better and better. Yeah, a couple really good reps against Chris Jones. Jones got him a couple times, but he held his own. the flexibility, I think, being able to maneuver better with his size, being able to take away Jones's momentum by changing his height and the depth of his sets and being able to kind of stalemate him and take away his power while also sustaining his. Really nice to see. Really nice to see from Torrance in spurts. And again, that right side of the line, Torrance and Brown are such a menacing duo when it comes to the run game on zone or on duo, literally with double teams, which is how they can displace guys on that right side. It really is beautiful. What else? What else? Charles saying, can't forget the Bills have the Iron Man at QB. Very thankful for that. No, Josh Allen will not be featured in this episode. That's a great comment there from Charles. Just because I think that's too low hanging of fruit. I'm just going to leave Josh Allen as his own thing. Similar to last week when Joe and I were talking about, the team MVP not named Josh Allen. Kind of obviously, I think that's too low hanging fruit and a given. So I'm kind of just put him outside into its own type of thing. Just a Tippy Canoe saying we're all thankful for Bruce Nolan. I think that's fair. Aiden saying snatch trap. Yeah, I don't know if you know what it is, and it's just funny verbiage and you're asking a question, but just in case people don't. So snatch trap, Deion Dawkins talked about it on, I think, Kay Adams' show. He calls it the ice pick, but it's pretty much known as a snatch trap across college and football. It's essentially when it's a move Dawkins does all the time. You're seeing Spencer Brown doing it more. And again, you see it across football a lot now as college and NFL. It's essentially when a defender, if we're using Deion Dawkins as an example, say the edge, or the defensive end is leaning too much into him. He comes off the line. He gets that long arm into Dawkins. He gets that extension. When you feel as an offensive lineman too much of that momentum and that force and, that balance and weight being on that arm or being on that upper body, they lean into you. And that's when you'll see Dawkins, when he'll snatch him down at the elbow, chop him at the wrist, chop him in the forearm, chop it again at the elbow, or sometimes he'll get his hands kind of by here and into the collar and yank them down. Sometimes it gets flagged for holding, but it's essentially too much momentum, too much leverage being put into the arms or the upper body of a defender. And so you snatch that momentum and that leverage, they kind of fall down, and then you bury them into the ground where you quote unquote trap them. If you actually search me on Twitter and just type in like pro ant snatch trap, you'll see it a ton. Or you just type in pro Ant Dawkins, you'll see it a ton. Yeah, actually, that's a good piece. That's a good piece. What else? RJ saying, I'm not a big fan of Edwards, and I think McGovern has issues with identifying free rushers, but outside of this, the offensive line has been pretty good. I think it's tough for, with free rushers, some of that is on Allen, some of that's on the running back, some of that is on rules for the offensive line. So you might see somebody coming through the A gap, for example, and you're attributing that rusher to, McGovern's got to get on that, but that's not necessarily McGovern's responsibility. There's a lot when it comes to protections. Not saying you're not right, but I think there's a lot when it comes to who's responsible for this rusher, this guy, the pre-snap protections and setting. Allen sets a lot of the pre-snap protections as well, so some of that's going to be on Allen. It's a bit muddy when it comes to who's responsible pre and post-snap for a lot of it. I do like Edwards, though. I think he's just solid. I don't think he does anything super sexy or super tremendous, but I just think he's reliable and he's really cost effective. He just does his job more often than not. Again, has some rough reps every now and again, but I think kind of who doesn't. Jordan saying, what happened to all those AFL throwback jerseys we used to wear? It feels like 2 or 3 seasons now since we worn them. I just want the 90s throwbacks for a couple, weeks out of the year. We got the creamsicles for the Bucks. We got the Kelly Greens for the Eagles. Man, I just want those 90s Bills jerseys. Jason saying this organization has become incredible with developing talent and replacing talent with drafted talent that has been developed. One of the most rare organizational traits in the NFL. I completely agree. Well said. John saying, I'm thankful for the coaching staff's commitment to player development. Give them a couple of years and a willing player. Yep. Charles saying, speaking of Kromer, how about the transition from mostly gap runs to zone and now one of the best zone run teams? I'm going to speak about that next. So that's actually a tremendous segue. I just want to grab this comment here from Jason saying, searching quote unquote pro ant snatch trap sounds like the kind of search I would do on a different kind of website. Very fair. Very fair. So Charles saying, speaking of Kromer, how about the transition from mostly gap runs to zone and now being one of the best zone run teams? That leads me into the second thing that I am thankful for with this Buffalo Bills team, and that is the run game diversity. So like, Charles mentioned, they were almost evenly split last year when it came to gap and zone runs, which is really saying a lot because the majority of the league has been favoring zone runs for years. I think the ratio last year was, I think it was 54-46 zone to gap, which again, almost being close to 50-50 is crazy. They were third last year in terms of gap run rate. And a lot of that was all, the tackle pull stuff, dart, where you're pulling Dawkins, you're pulling Spencer Brown, or the long trap stuff. Again, you're still pulling Brown, you're still pulling Dawkins. Duo, which is a run they leaned into last year as a concept that's classified as a gap run. So they were a good gap team last year. They're a good gap team this year. We've seen, like Charles mentioned, more zone worked in. And I think it ties into a lot of the, the formations and the personnel that they've used more of this year. So what you had last year, there are three main concepts. You had zone, you had, the tackle pull stuff, and then they'd work in that mid-zone run. This year, their mid-zone run has been their go-to run. And then duo, dart, tackle long trap, all the tackle pull stuff, both of those have kind of been like, okay, we'll pivot to them if we need to, but we're really just going to run like mid-zone week. And for those who don't know, mid-zone week, it's just a zone run to the weak side. The mid-zone aspect comes in. When it's mid-zone, that just means the running back's aiming point, the landmark, when they take off, is essentially the inside leg of the offensive tackle. So that's what you're looking at when it comes into a mid-zone run. I know we hear verbiage a lot of times of, inside zone, mid-zone, outside zone. So inside zone, the aim point of the running back on inside zone is the inside leg of the guard. Mid-zone, it's the inside leg of the offensive tackle. Outside zone, inside leg of the tight end. And then sometimes you'll have, teams will also go wide zone, which is, like that stretch play. That's, a couple yards outside of that tight end. Just wanted to kind of put that in there. But yeah, this year, mid-zone has been their go-to. I've talked about it on Twitter. I've talked about it on shows. It's been, Brady has spammed the hell out of it. And usually how he's spamming it is a very similar presentation, usually a 3-by-1 set. He'll motion somebody from the 3 wide receiver side in a jet motion across to create a 2-by-2. And then you'll run that mid-zone to that weak side, to the side that receiver is jet motioning to. He'll present it like that, and you'll spam it over and over and over again. What he's done the past couple of weeks is start to work play action off of that presentation to try and break some tendencies and keep defenses guessing a little bit, which has been nice. But I think the shift to more zone this year coincides with the reduced formational width and the personnel that they've gone with more. You've got 6 offensive linemen. You've got the tight ends that you want to get on the field and the bigger bodied wide receivers. So even when you're going 3-by-1 and you're in 11 personnel, meaning you got 3 wide receivers, they're still close to the line of scrimmage. You've got bodies near or around or attached to the line of scrimmage. You're increasing that surface count on the line of scrimmage. Those zone runs really pair well with the condensed formations, heavier personnel, that type of look. If you want to kind of put it in perspective, just think of, the Shanahan and McVay offenses for a while. The idea of, okay, here comes zone, zone, zone. Now here comes the play action with the boot off of it. It just marries the run and the pass very well. The play action off of zone runs, it's very easy to make a play action play from a zone scheme look exactly like a zone run. It blends and marries really well. And so, yeah, the Bills have pivoted a bit more to that this year, but it's that diversity overall. You have the ability to run that mid-zone weak. You can go duo, and then you have the tackle pull stuff, dart and long trap. You've got that ability at a moment's notice, and we've seen it this year. We saw it in week 2 against Miami, where they were running mid-zone weak, and Miami keyed in on it, and then Brady was like, okay, cool, let's pivot to duo. We saw it a couple weeks ago against the Colts as well. They key in on a Zaire Franklin attacks. Kwity Paye beats his man outside. They shut down a mid-zone run, and after that, I think 5 out of the next runs were duo. 5 out of the next 9 runs were duo. So that ability to pivot at the drop of a hat and be able to have multiple core run schemes that you can lean into based on opponent, based on game script, based on matchup, and then be able to pivot if that doesn't work. To be able to come into every week and be like, no, we're going to stick with mid-zone. That's our go-to for this week. And then if it's not working, be like, okay, cool, let's switch and pivot. Like, that's so tremendous. That run game diversity is so important. And the fact that they can run the ball out of 11, out of 12, out of 13, out of their 6 offensive lineman sets, being able to do all of that is really nice. And what's also a really nice piece is how well that mid-zone run also pairs with duo. So duo is always running the tight end side. So it's always, and with how the Bills align, right? It's, majority of the time their run formations and a lot of their personnel groupings and formational stuff in general is, if you're thinking about it in your mind, Deion Dawkins is the end man over here to the left. It's, Dawkins, Edwards, McGovern, Torrance, Brown, and then it's usually Knox, Kincaid, or Anderson, Knox, Anderson, Kincaid, or it's, a couple wide receivers and Knox. So you have kind of the offensive line into the tight end, extra offensive lineman, wide receiver grouping. So when you run duo, you run it to that tight end side, to that number side. When you run mid-zone weak, you run it to the weak side, the non-number side, and you can run both of those runs out of the same formation with the same presentation with the same personnel. And all you have to do is go left or go right. And you can build that into the line with Allen. You can see the numbers here and say, you have a duo run called here. You can potentially package that with, mid-zone weak and go to that opposite side, or bake in the numbers and the adjustment pieces with pass and run. And again, there's less tells also when you're kind of coming to the line. It's not like, okay, here's this formation, they're going to run duo. No, it's here's this formation. Oh, they could run duo or they could run mid-zone. Okay, they're more of a mid-zone team. Let's kind of counteract for that. And then the play action comes, or then duo comes, or something else happens out of that. It's a straight up, under center drop back pass, which doesn't happen a ton for the Bills or really anybody nowadays in football. But it's that diversity. It's that formational variability. It's that multiplicity you have in the run game because of the concepts you can run. And the more bodies you have attached to or around or hipped off the line of scrimmage, the more you can get to in your run game. That's a big part of the reason why I've been talking about it for several years, the ideas of moving toward reduced formational width, condensed formations, 12 personnel, and having true 12 personnel versatility where both your tight ends can function as blockers in the run game or as actual pass catchers in the pass game. It just opens up so much of your offense because you don't have to turn the page to access more of the menu in both the run and pass. And yeah, that run game diversity is something I'm extremely thankful for. Again, mid-zone, like Charles mentioned, mid-zone to the weak side has been their bread and butter, their go-to run this year. And you'll see it a lot. Just again, it's always to that weak side. It could be to the left. It could be to the right. It's always just to whatever the weak side of the formation is. But knowing that if that's not working, they can pivot to one of these other two concepts. They have three core concepts that you run really well. That's a really nice thing to have. And again, that also takes stress off of Josh Allen. You don't have to always press the Josh Allen button with his arm or with his legs. You don't have to tax him too much because it's just like, okay, let's run these. I don't want to say basic because I think that has a negative connotation, but let's just run these basic concepts, these basic schemes. Let's just press these buttons and pull these levers. And if they adjust to it or they beat it, cool, we'll push a different button or pull a different lever. And that's a testament to Brady. And again, another testament to Aaron Kromer and just with how this line is gelled, how they're able to block, and then the tight ends functioning within that run blocking aspect as well. Everything, the marriage of the run and the pass, how you tie it all together. Really, really, real nice piece. Just the Tippy Canoe saying, I'm thankful JP Lossman isn't our quarterback. Oh, the Lossman days. Pop saying, do you think McGovern Edwards has been better than Morse and McGovern last year? Ooh, I think it's different. I think McGovern and Edwards, McGovern is a different type of center than Morse. The longer arms, the better anchor. I think it's different. And I'm not trying to say that as a cop-out. Like Mitch Morse is one of the best movement centers in football. You want to get going on a pin and pull, or you want to use him on a full block on some zone runs and getting out and scooping and climbing to the second level and picking up a linebacker or anybody. Morse is legitimately one of the best in the business when it comes to that. McGovern isn't a bad athlete, but he's not the same level of mover that Morse is. Morse also isn't the physical presence that McGovern is, doesn't anchor as well. So I think McGovern, I'm confusing all the M names now. McGovern, I think, has provided better security for the depth and the interior of the pocket, and also has given you a little bit more downhill movement ability. Morse, I think, gave you more from a movement standpoint, from an athleticism standpoint, different skill sets, different traits, and how that ties in schematically. I like what McGovern and Edwards has been, though. if I had to pick one, it's tough to say who's been better. I really, again, because they're different. For me, it's like comparing, a home run hitter who's gonna mash 40 homers but bat 260 with a guy who hits 320 but only hits like 20 homers. And it's like, okay, like which would you rather have type of deal. I just think they're different with skill sets and traits and how it ties in. But I've been pleased with McGovern and Edwards as a duo this year. Jason saying, okay, serious question though. What do you make of their running back usage? Cook clearly gets the majority, but it really seems situational, the use of the running backs. What do you think they see that makes them do that? So one, I think Ty Johnson, to kind of start from the bottom up, Ty Johnson is really good on third downs. Ty Johnson's a good running back. I know he's third on this depth chart and really doesn't get talked about a lot. Ty Johnson's a good running back, man. He's good on the ground. He's good coming out of the backfield and catching the football by design or on checkdowns. And he's also the best pass protector the Bills have at running back in terms of actually like being a functional blocker, being able to pick up blitzes, but also being able to recognize the blitz, being able to understand who his assignment is, who he's supposed to pick up, being able to scan, read, and react, and then actually function at the blitz pickup spot or rush pickup spot. Ty Johnson's their best guy. Davis isn't bad. Cook has made improvements, but Cook, it's still not a strength for him. And Davis is a rookie, although he's better than Cook in that regard. So I think you have that with Ty Johnson. And then to go to the top with James Cook, Cook just has more juice than anybody in that running back room. And I've talked about it on Twitter. I don't think I've talked about it. I talked about it a little bit on the show. Just the physicality that he's added to his game this year, the contact balance, the toughness, the power, the ability to consistently fall forward. I think James Cook, and I'm going to talk about him in a little bit in another segment here, but I think James Cook has really done a good job in terms of rounding himself out into an overall legitimate RB1 with what he can do on the ground, power, contact balance, speed, agility, vision, gap, zone, in terms of scheme, and then also being able to catch the ball in the backfield. The only thing that's hurting him from being a complete true or three down back is the pass protection stuff. Ray Davis, I like what he offers. Again, we've seen him show those glimpses coming out of the backfield, catching the ball, like I talked about when he was drafted out of Kentucky. He's a good receiving back out of the backfield, more of a hammer, more of a downhill threat, but still enough juice and shake to him, but a bit more ground and pound and downhill at you type of run. I think when it comes to the usage, it's Cook is the one. He can run every scheme that they have. He's got that speed, and I think that's the difference that separates him and Ray Davis, even though I like Davis and I like Johnson as well. I think the 2 touchdowns for Cook against Kansas City really put that into perspective. The first one is a, zone run to that weak side, and it's not blocked poorly, but KC has the number advantage on that side. They're gapped out, and Cook just beats it to the corner and scores purely because of juice and speed. That's it. Then the second touchdown, he scores on duo by running through their safety and breaking a couple tackles and falling forward and going through dudes to score. Like, he has that combination right now that makes him the one. So when I'm talking running back usage, I think Cook is the true one. Then you spell him with Davis. And then when they need a third down back or more of a passing down back, that is Ty Johnson, just based on how it shook out so far. Joe saying all the more reason that we hope Kincaid emerges as a blocker later this season or the next. Complement that diversity by now enhancing the threat of Kincaid's duality as a tight end. I completely agree. I put out a tweet and a Blue Sky post a couple weeks ago on a conversation that Nate Tice and I had here on the show back in April of 2022. And he and I were talking about, the future of offenses and 12 personnel and why it was so important. And so much of the value of 12 personnel, and Dalton Kincaid in particular, so much of that value is tied to being a functional run blocker against as many body types as possible. If Dalton Kincaid, and I'm not saying he can't, but if Dalton Kincaid cannot function as a blocker against linebackers, edges from time to time, bigger body types, then he's essentially just a big wide receiver. If his only value as a blocker is against nickel corners, he's essentially just a big bodied wide receiver, because you can get that type of blocking from Shakir, from Hollins, from Coleman, from Samuel. You need to be able to dig out safeties. You need to be able to block or crack on a linebacker or base block a linebacker or hold your own against a defensive end. That's always going to be a mismatch, but being able to hold your own enough to impede them or provide an obstacle to them. If Kincaid can't do that regularly, then again, he's essentially just a big-bodied wide receiver. And that big-bodied wide receiver. And that's not terrible, right? But it does limit his value because part of the idea, like I mentioned a little bit ago with 12 personnel, is being able to go with these formations and alignments and being able to access more of the menu without turning the page. If he's not a threat as a run blocker in a variety of ways, that limits what you can get to. And it also limits the dictation that you have to the defense because now you're not necessarily forcing them into a bind with their personnel. Because it's not like, well, we got to match with this personnel grouping, or we got to match with 3 linebackers, or this safety, or this corner, or this nickel because of, they're in 12 and they can get to anything in the run and the pass. It just limits what you can do. So I do think, again, the good news with Kincaid is he is a willing blocker. He's just not the most functional. Part of it is how he's built, size and frame. He's, obviously got the size and frame advantage against corners and most DBs, but it doesn't hold up as much against bigger or more physical or more violent or imposing type dudes like linebackers and defensive ends. And again, a tight end against a defensive end is usually always going to be a mismatch. But you look at somebody like Josh Reynolds is a good example last year for the Detroit Lions. Now he's on the Broncos. You go to the NFC Championship game against the 49ers, and in their first couple of plays, they run crack toss. And Josh Reynolds is washing Nick Bosa down. Again, he's not annihilating Bosa. He's not, pancaking him and drive him into the dirt, but he cracks on him, holds his ground, and is able to get push and get movement on him. That's the type of stuff you want to see from Dalton Kincaid. It's not like, yeah, he's going to, base block Khalil Mack and put him into the dirt or displace him and drive him back 5 feet. He just needs to show more functionality in those type of situations and in those roles. And again, the good news is he's willing. He's not soft. He's not shy or scared of contact or scared to kind of mash with dudes. He's just not functional there. Part of it is size and frame and kind of how he's physically built and where he carries his weight. And I also think part of it is technique based. And again, maybe Kromer, gets him in the gym a little bit more and can kind of get him on that Dawson Knox level. Knox has become a really good blocker. He just has to, pair it with the technique and some physicality as well, or swing it one way or the other. You don't have to be the most physical or the most violent, but if your technique is on point, you can mitigate it one way or the other. Same thing if your technique isn't on point, but you're just violent, you want to mash, you can kind of do the job a little bit. Aiden saying, why are certain running backs better at blocking? Is it just a size thing or a willingness? It's a combination of those two and technique. I think with Cook, some of it is size. He's not the biggest dude, listed around 200 pounds. I don't know what he is now. I think he looks thicker this year, so I feel like he's like 207, 208. So some of it is just size. If you're a 205-pound running back and even if there's a small linebacker, say you're a 230-pound linebacker running downhill at a 205-pound running back, that linebacker is 25 pounds on your running back, and they're coming with momentum and speed. They are the hammer. You are the nail. So you don't necessarily have the most size, and willingness will tie into that a little bit, but it's size, it's frame, and then it is technique as well. Johnson is a little stockier, a little thicker, also more experienced. So the technique is going to be better, but also size and frame kind of lends itself. It can be a mixture of all three, right? If you're just super willing, again, if you're super willing, you're violent, you can get the job done. If your technique is tremendous, you can get the job done. If you're just a tank and your technique isn't great, you can kind of just stonewall dudes because you're bigger than they are or just as big as they are. And your technique can be a little poorer because you have that size. So it really is a combination of a multitude of those things. That's a really good question. Puka saying Cook has done a good job of taking his game to the next level. I legitimately believe he has. I don't really believe in giving running backs a second contract. It has to be a real special situation. But I think he's done a good job in kind of earning him a next contract, whether it's with the Bills or somebody else. He is, and if he can just improve that pass blocking a little bit, man, he can be a real threat as a true 3-down back with what he can do out of the backfield in a multitude of ways. And watching him pair that physicality with the speed and the juice, it's nice. Ralph saying Cook is watching Davis starting to take notes on how to lower his pads. I honestly think there's some of that in there. I think Davis brought that hammer mentality, and Cook was like, all right, nah, like I'm going to bring that too. I can also do that. Watch me. And it's been really nice. Aiden saying Kromer has to put Kincaid in a blocking boot camp this summer. I like that. Aiden saying, does Kincaid just need to put on more muscle? It depends, because you could add more muscle, but if you add more muscle and sacrifice flexibility or pliability, or fluidity in your game and just overall movement, then it kind of becomes a loss. And then how much are you sacrificing in the receiving aspect to kind of beef up there? Again, I think a lot of it is just technique based for him. If he can add some more muscle and thicken out a little bit while not sacrificing too much from an agility and explosion and flexibility perspective, I'm all for it. But it is a dangerous mix. You kind of just need to get some more sand to you and a little heavier, a little bit in terms of how you play, whether it's literally or kind of figuratively. Good questions there. I like that. Aiden saying maybe put on some ankle weights just for run plays. Yeah, could. Whatever gets the job done. Whatever gets the job done. Next piece I want to talk about here is, I mentioned some of these players earlier in a variety of forums, in a variety of fashions, but I want to talk about them in specificity now. I tweeted this out earlier. It was a little bit of a spoiler for kind of some thoughts here in the show. The 2022 draft class for the Buffalo Bills. I am thankful for that draft class because that group has really had a significant impact on the team this year. Going through it, just for those who don't know, the 2022 draft class, Kyer Elam in round 1, James Cook in round 2, Terrell Bernard in round 3, Khalil Shakir in round 5, Matt Ariza in round 6, Christian Benford in round 6, Luke Tenuta in round 6, Balin Spector in round 7. So you had 8 draft picks in that class. That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. Sometimes my math can be wrong. You had 8 draft picks in that class, and 4 have been very legitimate hits and have become plus starters for you. James Cook, we've already talked about. Next one, Terrell Bernard in round 3. The air traffic controller of the Bills defense, as I always refer to him. Extremely smart, good coming forward, a good blitzer, played in a very pro-ready, pro-style system at Baylor under head coach Dave Aranda, understands how to play the game from the neck up with his intelligence and how to, again, quarterback a defense, coordinating everyone, executing push calls, telling, this is the play that's coming, or if they run this play, you're doing this, I'm doing that, you're going over here. Just a real ultimate adjuster, but then the actual play, understanding, his size limitations, being able to slash and shoot and trigger and make plays in and around the line of scrimmage, making plays in coverage. What he's been has been a real strength for this Bills defense. Khalil Shakir, talked about him a little bit, what he's become. I mean, through, before week 12, through 11 weeks amongst 47 wide receivers with at least 50 targets, he was 9th in EPA per target, 6th in total EPA, 3rd in success rate, 13th in yards per target, 7th in yards per route run, the lowest average depth of target out of those 47 wide receivers at 3.5 yards, and the lowest average depth of catch at 2.6 yards. And he was 3rd league-wide in yards after catch and 2nd amongst wide receivers, only to Jamar Chase, who has had back-to-back weeks of just monster yards after catch games. What Shakir has become in this offense, again, a 5th-round pick. I still don't understand how he lasted to the 5th round. I thought he would go in round 3, round 4 at the latest, but lasted until round 5. The Bills got him. He has been, like we talked about earlier, the security blanket, the easy button for this Bills offense, whether it's by design on tunnel screens or taking advantage of space and leverage with the RPO bubbles, the runs with the pass tags where Allen is just reading numbers and spitting it out really quick to Shakir, or it's something like, running a little over the ball route and getting the ball at 5 yards and shaking somebody and turning that 5-yard catch into 15 yards after or 20 yards after, and the physicality that he shows when he has the ball and how he turns into a running back once the ball is in his hands with the contact balance and the moves and the gait and the power and the control, all of it. What Shakir has been absolutely tremendous. Christian Benford, 6th-round pick in that year, I think is a huge part of why you're not too upset that Kyer Elam hadn't panned out as the 1st-round corner he was drafted to be. But even Elam has been, again, it's not ideal. I understand that from everyone. It's not ideal resource allocation to have a 1st-round pick that isn't a core starter for you and is more of a depth guy, is like a corner 3 or a corner 4, position 3, position 4, whatever it is. I understand that. But Elam isn't a complete lost cause. He might be a starter for the Bills next year. We might be sitting here at this point next year talking about how Christian Benford and Kyer Elam are this real solid corner duo because the Bills didn't keep Rasul Douglas, and Elam is kind of taking that mantle. So who knows? Elam looked good in the preseason. and looked good in camp. Got burned by Tyreek Hill against Miami, but overall had a fine game aside from that. We'll see if Elam can become anything. But even if Elam was a huge bust, which I still don't think he is at this point, because again, I think depth is valuable. But again, I recognize he's not what you drafted him for at the first round. I understand that. But Christian Benford just rounding into last year, I thought he was a real quality cornerback 2. He's turning into a legit cornerback 1, especially in today's NFL. These numbers, again, are from go ahead and into the bye. Amongst 104 corners with at least 15 targets per Sports Info Solutions, Benford was 7th in EPA per target, 3rd in EPA, 38th in success rate, 5th in yards per attempt, 15th in yards per target, 11th in quarterback rating against, and then he was 2nd in Havoc, which is a metric per Field Vision, that brand and that company. That accounts for scheme and adds that context into it as well. So he's 2nd in that metric. And in that regard, it's just, man, like what Benford has become, what Shakir's become, what Bernard has become, what Cook has become, even Baylon Spector, 7th round pick, quality special teamer. Also was able to stem the tide a little bit for Terrell Bernard when he went out earlier this year. Having somebody like Spector who came in and wasn't a complete liability as a 7th round pick from a couple of years ago. You don't even know if a 7th round pick is going to make the roster. You're just hoping they can provide some value on special teams. And if they become something else, cool. Even similar for a 6th round pick. So Spector becoming, some functional depth is cool. And that's still a win. So there's 4 legitimate plus starters: Cook, Bernard, Shakir, Benford. 2 of those plus starters, Shakir and Benford, came on day 3. Shakir in round 5, Benford in round 6. And then again, you're adding in Spector, and I think you do add Kyer Elam as well. Both those guys being various and differing levels of functional depth. I know Spector looks better because he's a 7th round pick, Elam a 1st. I know. I just want to keep saying in case someone jumps in right now and wants to yell at me. But yeah, that 2022 draft class really hit. Prospect evaluation is still very much an inexact science, but getting 4 plus level starters out of 8 picks is a huge win. And then having 2 other guys that are providing on the roster as depth on your chart and being able to come in a pinch if needed is also a nice little cherry on top as well. It's just been such a quality group that they've been able to maintain from there. And it's been one that they've needed, in this revamp year. You need these guys that are cost affordable to produce. You need to capitalize on these guys to kind of maximize their output while not costing an arm and a leg and you having to pay them the moon. So getting this out of Cook, again, Cook round 2, Terrell Bernard round 3, Khalil Shakir round 5, Christian Benford round 6, and then Elam in 1, Spector in 7. Just a real strong quality draft class. We'll see who gets paid and who gets re-signed going forward and for how much and what it shakes down to. But yeah, this 2022 draft class, they played well, as rookies in some spurts, depending on, who you were. Really kind of Benford showing out and Cook flashing a bit. And then more from Cook and Benford and Bernard and Shakir last year. And then all 4 again, continuing to build like that new core, that new nucleus for this Bills squad. Poyer's gone. Hyde is gone. Diggs is gone. Gabe Davis is gone. Like these previous guys that were the leaders or the core, they went out. Who was that next group to kind of step in? I'm really looking at that 2022 draft class in terms of leadership combination, but also that on-field production, actual execution aspect. They have been absolutely huge and absolutely tremendous. Charles saying Shakir, 64 targets, 0 drops. Yeah, part of it, I don't like bringing up catch rate with Shakir because yes, he still has to catch the ball, but like I mentioned, like his average depth of target is 3.5 yards, which is the lowest out of those 47 wide receivers, and his average depth of catch is 2.6 yards, which is also the lowest. So again, you still have to catch the ball, and Allen can throw some bullets. So if you're closer to him, it might be a little harder, but I don't think catch rate is the best thing for Shakir because so many of his targets are in and around the line of scrimmage where it's just quick little like flips and hitters to him. But yes, he is catching pretty much everything that's gone his way, which is nice. And he's also showing that a little more downfield as well. So you can kind of make that argument in case. Bob saying Josh deserves continuity at the wide receiver position. 1-year deals hasn't panned out that well except for Hollins, possibly Cooper. Shakir should get extended. Chemistry can't be undervalued. I agree that Khalil Shakir deserves a contract extension. We'll see kind of what that goes into. Extra Crispy saying Khalil Shakir kind of reminds me of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not quite as effective, but still very good. I think that I don't want to make this sound disrespectful to Shakir, but yeah, I feel like kind of the bargain bin Amon-Ra St. Brown. Which again, I don't think is an insult to Shakir because Amon-Ra is like one of the top 5 wide receivers in football, especially with what he does as a blocker. Man, like that's such an aspect of his game that does not get enough credit. Obviously, if you're a wide receiver, it's the pass catching stuff that gets you recognition. His hands, his route running, the toughness after the catch, the ability at the catch point. He can run anything and everything, and just what he can do is awesome. But he's a really good blocker. Like he's physical, he's nasty, he can handle dudes that are bigger than him and like various body types. Yeah, he's whew, yeah, he does a lot. RJ saying, I still think Elam can be great. He has more impactful splash plays than Trey White. Oh, I don't know about that. Saying he's got more impactful splash plays than Trey. I don't know if you can say that, but to each their own. And even if he did have more splash plays, Trey was so technically sound coming out of the gate. Like that level of technique, I think goes so unappreciated because it's not the sexiest. But yeah, Trey was locked down when he was cooking. And it's a shame that multiple injuries kind of took him off track a little bit. But man, Trey was something special. John saying some take longer to mature than others, like Elam. Yep, you never know. Maybe he catches on in year 4 or further, kind of go from there. Aiden saying, what kind of contract do you expect Shakir to get? Will we be able to retain him? I think they will be able to retain him. I haven't done any contract work. I got to take a look at comps and markets and all that kind of stuff as I take a quick drink here. I'm so deep into scheme and structure and looking at everything from a lead-wide perspective on the field and college stuff as well. I don't get into contract things until the offseason. So circle back once the season is done and I can dive into it. Or actually, maybe I'll dive into it after this episode and kind of go through it. But yeah, I got to look at comps and see what the market contracts were and how that projects out. But I do think he can be a realistic retention. I don't think he's going to break the market or look to get like $20 million a year. Like, I think he'll be fine. Yeah, and Aiden saying, just swap the Benford and Elam picks and pretend you're happy. Exactly. Just do that and you're good. Oh, Pop saying Ladd McConkey looks like he could be a Shakir. Ladd isn't the yards after catch type of dude that Shakir is, but he's just such a good route runner. Ladd McConkey, I said it coming out this past year in the draft, like he's just such a professional route runner from day one. I don't think the ceiling was super high, but the floor was super high. He can run any route. He understands pacing, deception. He's got a good release package. He's good with his stems. He understands how to lie and, I'm going to sell up field and pop out. He's got good feet. He's got good hips. He understands how to get in and out of breaks decisively and sharply, how to set defenders up. I saw him in person at the Senior Bowl, and he did not disappoint. Yeah, Ladd McConkey is I think he's a different kind of player than Shakir, but he's a professional from day one, a professional route runner from day one as soon as he hit the field. I like that there. Let's go into, actually, before we go into our next piece, I got a couple more topics that I want to get through here, but I like to bring it up at different points in different shows, depending on what we're doing. I want to show some love for the sponsor. I mentioned it earlier, One Pie Pizza, the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. I don't say that because they sponsor the show. They sponsor the show because I truly think they are the best. Homemade blue cheese, sweet sauce pie, cup and char pepperoni. When you get like different toppings, veggies and different things, like they'll chop them up and then they sprinkle them up so you get an even distribution across the pizza, which is really awesome. They also do catering in different foods, breakfast pizzas. Like they truly make amazing, amazing food, especially their pizza. But what I really like about them, and I mentioned this all throughout the entirety of the entire year, is how generous they are within the community and the city. And, they partner with Roswell, they partner with the Alzheimer's Foundation, the SPCA, and Toys for Tots. Different times a year, different types of drives and initiatives. This time, holidays, Toys for Tots. You can see this graphic they have up here. Drop an unwrapped gift into our Toys for Tots donation box and receive a chance to win one of our many great prizes. Prizes include a signed Josh Allen custom jersey, a signed James Cook custom jersey, 1 free pizza a month for a year, 4 free pizzas, and 5th place is 1 free pizza. You get a ticket for every toy that you drop off. So if you come and you drop off 5 toys, you get 5 tickets. So 5 chances to win. I've mentioned this the past couple of weeks. I'm going to continue to drive it home on the show for as long as the drive lasts. I'm going to continue to plug it on social media. I love Christmas. I know a lot of folks love Christmas. Sometimes Christmas isn't as great for others and for the less fortunate as it is for you or your family or your loved ones. And I think it's very awesome to try and brighten someone else's holiday, especially for a kid, to make sure kids can have as many presents as possible, or at least one present for everyone. There are so many unfortunate or less fortunate and disadvantaged people and families out there in the country and in the world in general. So anytime you can do something generous and kind, I think it's awesome if you can and you do so. So yeah, Toys for Tots Drive and One Pie Pizza, which is great. And again, if you're just in it for the prizes, that's cool too. Or if you're just in it because, hey, I'll bring a toy because I'm getting some pizza, that's fine. So whether you want to treat your taste buds to some delicious food, or if you want a chance at one of these sweet prizes, or if you just want to do some genuine good and be altruistic in that regard, that's awesome. Either way, go get yourself some One Pie Pizza, drop off a toy into their donation box. They have a bunch of boxes. There's usually like 5 or 6 boxes in there. They fill them up. It goes quickly, which is awesome to see. So get in on that. Do some good in the community and treat yourself potentially at the same time. Thank you, folks, very much for that. Next piece, let's talk about in this show. Oh, this is awesome from Jason saying, it is a special gift that as a human, it can make us feel good to give things away. Thanks for this. And no, this is all One Pie, man. Like, it's awesome to have a sponsor who operates this type of generosity and this type of kindness, again, throughout the entirety of the year. So that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very pumped to be able to do this every year for them, but I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you very much. The next piece, Taron Johnson and Greg Rousseau. I lumped them together because of what they mean schematically. Oh, I got to stop because we got a super chat. Carl says, it's 29 days until Christmas. Where is your second tree? I love the question, Carl. Haven't pulled out the second tree yet because we haven't hit Thanksgiving yet. So next week's shows, the full tree will be live and in effect. So I will take the littler tree, do some holiday decor and decoration on it for Christmas. I'll move it over to the little spot, and then I will take that bigger tree and plant it right there. I always wait. That's the rule. The big tree in the house in the living room goes up after Thanksgiving. So this weekend, that tree is going up. This weekend, the other tree is going to go up here. I appreciate you keep me on my toes, Carl, and keep me accountable. And thank you for being here, as you always are. And thank you for the super chat. You're one of the most consistent contributors and donators, and I really appreciate it. And so does the brand. Thank you very much for that. And good question. I appreciate you appreciating the trees. Daniel saying, per Spot Track, Shakir's market value is $18.8 million per year for what it's worth. Oh, I could see him. I was going to say, in my head, I was thinking 15 million. Actually, the kind of number that I had in my head, I don't know why. The number, let me see. Oh, the number in my head was 64 million over 4 years, which is like 16 million per. I'm thinking he could probably get less. I'm hoping like 14 million per, maybe 15. I don't think he pushes 20. Maybe if he continues to ball out and he has some playoff moments, but that's interesting that they market him around 18.8. Yeah, my thought is kind of like 14 to 16 million per, somewhere around that range. I wish it could be like 10 million per. That would be amazing. Jason, thank you. One, I always appreciate you being here. You're awesome. I just consistent presence every single week, which is great. And your activity is awesome. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you. And Jason says, thankful to you. Don't put pressure on Ant's wife. It doesn't happen on our watch. I appreciate that. Thank you for not pressuring my wife when it comes to the tree setup and all the production things that happen behind me. I appreciate that. And then John coming in saying, well said, Jason. That's awesome. Dominic, what's up, Dom? Dom says, I'm thankful for cover one in the Goofy Discord chat. Yeah, the Discord chat is awesome. One of the pieces we hang our hat on. I'm always in the film chat. I post stuff, a lot of clips there, whether stuff I'm posting to Twitter or stuff that's not. So find me in the film Discord channel, but there's tons of different channels within the Discord, the Bills chat, the college football chat, the film chat. There's a multitude of things in a variety of ways. Yeah, and it's like over 500 people deep, and the Bills chat is always rolling. I feel like it's so hard to just catch up and join in the conversation. So I feel like even though the film is deeper, I gravitate more towards that. And then because it's somewhat less active, I feel like it's the kiddie pool in terms of engagement, and it makes me not feel as overwhelmed as the giant Bills chat, which is always just hopping. But yeah, Dom, you're awesome. I appreciate you for that. John saying, I enjoy the educated folks in the chat, as do I. Jason saying, I can't figure the slot wide receiver market due to how there is such a mix in the modern NFL. Yeah, especially now with how much like wide receiver ones move into the slot And like what you get from Amon-Ra St. Brown, what you get from Justin Jefferson, what you get from Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and like all these dudes, like it muddies the whole waters out of the slot. Jamar Chase, like all these dudes that have inside, outside flexibility, versatility, can align anywhere, can run any route, like move them, leave them stationary, slot, X, Z, backfield. Yeah, the market is wild now, but dudes are getting paid. So kind of hard to argue with guys chasing the bag. Next topic of who I'm thankful for, Taron Johnson and Greg Rousseau. Wanted to grab the comment for Joe saying, I'm thankful for Rousseau seemingly hitting his stride. Feels like this is the furthest in the season he's been healthy since his rookie year. No jinx. And it looks like his pass rush skills have improved too. Yeah, I think, Rousseau starting to have more of an inside move this year that he's been dominant with. When he's used it, it's worked. And then him always being able to play with his length, good hand placement, good punch, good pop, good strength, good leverage, and just being one of the best run defending edges in football consistently. One of the best run defending defensive linemen. That is kind of hard to say in the NFL. I wanted to tie him and Taron Johnson together because, and I've spoken about metrics for both of them on Twitter, on shows. I wanted to talk more about what they mean schematically and why I'm so thankful for them. It's because of what they mean schematically, especially in today's NFL, and especially with how good they're playing. Taron Johnson, All-Pro last year. Rousseau, one of the best run setting or edge setting, run defending defensive linemen. I said it right. In all of football, not just edges, anybody on the defensive line. They're so important because of the bind that offenses want to put you in today. The Bills, especially, we know, nickel defense, and they want to play with light boxes. They want to only rush 4. They want to play with light boxes. They want numbers in coverage. They want to limit explosives in the pass game. They want to keep everything in front of them. They want to squeeze passing windows, play top down, rally, tackle, create havoc, turnovers, all that kind of stuff. The way to do that for them is, again, having numbers in coverage. When I say numbers in coverage, having 7 in coverage. If you have 7 in coverage consistently, you always have the numbers advantage against the offense, because the most an offense can get out into a route distribution is 5. 7 obviously is greater than 5, but you can game them up. Sometimes they're only getting 4, sometimes they're only getting 3. The Bills want that coverage advantage from a numbers perspective. Plus, being able to consistently drop 7 into coverage means you can get to more in coverage, both in terms of pre and post snap disguises, rotations, all that stuff, but just in terms of general coverages, what you can do, how you can get to them, non-traditional stuff. Who's a split field player, who's the pole runner or the Tampa player, who's covering the flat, who's the cloud corner, who's dropping, who's going here. If you have numbers, you can play more games. And we've seen the Bills do that more this year. In order to play with light boxes and combat the personnel groupings that you see from opposing offenses in today's NFL, you need players who can live against the run and the pass in a variety of ways. And we'll start with Taron Johnson, what he is as a nickel. I know so much of the conversation has been, okay, if they play teams that go 12 or 13 personnel or 21 and they're really mashing you, do you take out Taron Johnson? Dorian Williams has really developed. So when Milano comes back, do you take out Taron and put Dorian in there, so on and so forth. The idea of kind of like more base packages or base personnel with 3 linebackers. I understand it. But Taron Johnson's a really good run defender. And his ability to function in coverage, in a multitude of coverages, in a multitude of responsibilities, whether he's the hook player or the curl to flat player, he's dropping as a split field safety at times, or if he's coming forward, playing the run, playing in the box, taking on pulling linemen, triggering, shooting gaps, making tackles in and around the line of scrimmage, playing in the box, playing at that apex, and shooting off a variety of opponents, right? He's able to play like a linebacker and a nickel corner at the same time. And that just increases the flexibility and the variability for this defense. It allows you to not be dictated to as much because you've got somebody who can legitimately function against the run and also function against the pass. And then you take Greg Rousseau. His ability is a game wrecker against the run. He can cover like 2 gaps just by himself. You'll see him cover that outside C gap, but then he has the ability to stack, shed, and get those tree trunk arms back across and into the B gap as necessary and make a tackle at the line of scrimmage. Like, his functionality against the run is part of what allows the Bills to play light boxes and not get gouged too much. Yes, they will get gashed from time to time. We've talked a bunch on this show about their run defense, and their philosophy is very much like, we're going to get got, but we're also going to get you. You're going to gash us for 6 or 9 or 12. we're going to get you for -4. We're going to get you for -2. And when we get you in second and third behind the sticks, that's when we capitalize and that's when we pounce. Rousseau is integral to their philosophy and towards what they're able to do and the numbers that they play in the box or don't have to play in the box, being able to live in nickel personnel, being able to spin a safety late, being able to have smaller, faster, rangier, more trigger mentality linebackers like Bernard, like Milano, even Taron Johnson to a degree with how he plays as a quasi linebacker at times. Having somebody like Greg Rousseau up front that can handle the run, that can maintain and set the edge, but who can also penetrate, who's great with that bootleg, counter, reverse, or run type of responsibility where he can move down the line and read, okay, like let me watch for the cutback. Okay, here comes the reverse. Okay, the quarterback's keeping it. He's booting. Let me trigger on the QB. How sound he is from an assignment and technique perspective against the run opens up so much for the defense. Greg Rousseau is a consistent force multiplier on this Bills defensive line, whether he's making a stop, whether he's not making a stop, whether he's getting a sack, whether he's not. I still would like his pass rush productivity to take another jump and become a true overall, edge one. But he's so good against the run and has shown enough in terms of pass rush that I think he's really kind of coming into his own. And again, he's a force multiplier and opens up a lot. He unlocks the defense in a multitude of ways. And I think Taron Johnson is in a very similar boat with how they both allow the defense to play numbers and play coverage while not being completely vulnerable or susceptible to the run game. And just their read and recognition ability. Taron, especially on the back end, his communication, he's always been good with it, but he's really stepped it up this year in the absence of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Taron and Greg Rousseau really, and again, there are numbers and metrics to speak to, but just what they mean schematically as force multipliers, as unlockers for the rest of the defense and how they play philosophically and from an identity perspective, really just honestly means a lot. Jason saying, we talked about the quality of Nathan Peterman as a scout team safety a few days ago. That is the kind of quality depth you get in the Cover One Discord. Never disappoints. Never disappoints. John saying, I missed that one. Jason says, again, our traditional opponents treat Taron like another linebacker in the run. The less knowing teams still think they can attack that like he won't be able to handle their runner, and it's a classic battle. Yeah, he's able to match up against receivers in the run game, match up against tight ends. He can take on fullbacks. He can take on Alec Ingold and not get mismatched when the Bills play the Dolphins. He'll take on pulling guards and he'll shoot underneath, and he'll even try and like stop him in the hole or plug a gap and force and fill, or just kind of get underneath someone and make a play. Taron is an absolute monster. Again, all-pro last year and very well deserving of it. One of the best, if not the best, slot corners and nickel dudes in the entirety of the NFL. He and Greg Rousseau, I think, are kind of somewhat mirrors in terms of how they unlock the defense and what they mean schematically as force multipliers for the Bills defense. So yeah, very thankful for them. This next piece, it's been mentioned a couple times in this episode by people in the chat, which is awesome. But I labeled this depth and player development. You could label it Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, Bobby Babich, Joe Brady, the coaching staff, however you want. I just labeled it depth and player development to kind of give it a broader umbrella term, especially defensively in what we've seen this year. The defensive schematics, the player development, consistently being able to raise players' floors and mitigate losses, being able to take your all-pro corner in Taron Johnson and remove him from the lineup and replace him with Cam Lewis, who is like a safety slot hybrid, and being able to mitigate that all-pro loss and not just be a hole and a vulnerability. Being able to take your starting linebacker, all-pro linebacker, Matt Milano, being able to replace him with Dorian Williams, who had to do a lot of learning on the job and who still needs to do more learning on the job. I still don't think he's there. I don't want to bash him too much, but the progression that he's shown, being able to fill in for Milano. I mentioned Spector earlier, being able to step in for Terrell Bernard. What we've seen in a variety of spots defensively, but then again, even offensively, like the development of Khalil Shakir, even the development of Keon Coleman, what you've gotten from James Cook, even from Ray Davis, like what you're seeing from Spencer Brown, what you're seeing from Osiris Torrance, like Dawson Knox, I knocked my own chair down with my foot. I always play with the little lever. What you're seeing from Dawson Knox. I still don't love the contract that Knox got. I am not a fan of it. And I don't think he's become the pass catching option that I think most fans wanted him to be, given the potential or the athleticism they saw in him and given the contract that he was given. I think he's a guy who could very much be schemed open, and his athleticism plays really well in the scheme. Sail routes, over routes, crossers, stuff where he can really use that speed and pull away from defenders and stretch defenses. He's tremendous on that because of his speed and athleticism. I don't think he's necessarily a guy that can just get you a bucket and win one-on-one like Dalton Kincaid can, but he does enough in the pass, and he's become a very good run blocker against a variety of body types and skill sets. Again, not necessarily to the level of the contract that he signed a couple years ago, but just the development they've had as a whole on this team, but especially on the defensive side of the ball. Christian Benford, we talked about, like, getting these guys late and being able to turn them into quality dudes and just consistently being able to raise floors and even raise ceilings for a variety of guys, whether they're a UDFA or a day 1 pick, day 2 pick, day 3 pick, a free agent, a 1-year guy, a 3-year guy in terms of free agency. The variety of players and skill sets that they brought in and fit them into their philosophy and their culture and their identity, and being able, again, to provide quality depth. So when you have injuries, you have the depth to be able to withstand that and be like, Taron Johnson's out. You know what I'm saying is, Taron Johnson, I think, is arguably the most important player for the entire Bills defense. I think he and Greg Rousseau are arguably the two most important players for the Bills defense. And the fact that you can lose Taron Johnson and still be okay is a testament to the depth and the coaching and player development on this team. Even similar to Matt Milano. Matt Milano takes this defense to another level when he's in there. You know, Bernard does to a degree as well. Being able to lose those guys and still be okay. It's just wild what they've been able to do this year. And again, a calling card for the past couple of years, but the depth that this team has been able to build regularly and the player development that they've had. I know in some areas it's been lacking. You know, I know we haven't seen the, defensive line consistency or productivity that we wanted to see, given all of the resource allocation financially and in terms of draft capital over the past several years. But they just know how to raise floors for dudes and raise ceilings. And sometimes that ceiling isn't necessarily what we want, or that floor isn't necessarily what we want, but they more often than not get quality reps out of a lot of guys. They're able to stem the tide and stem the bleeding a little bit when they lose their studs or they lose their star guys. They're good at adjustments. And again, a lot of this is on the defensive side of the ball, but you're seeing some of it offensively too. Just very thankful for that this year, again, because you lose Matt Milano in camp. You lose Taron Johnson early in week 1. You lose Terrell Bernard early in week 2. And those guys came back, but you're able to kind of just deal with that and be okay with that. And Kyrie Elam played some reps this year. And just Spencer Brown, we talked about it earlier. Spencer Brown goes down and Ryan Vandermark just steps in, and you're like, okay, he's not a hole. He's not a vulnerability. Like, that depth and that player development is so huge, because dudes are going to go down. Dudes are going to get banged up. You need to have somebody be able to step in and not have the wheels fall completely off. And that's what the Bills have been able to do this year, which is so important in, again, a revamp year where you are changing a little how you operate schematically, what the direction is, the culture, the identity on the field, off the field, all of that stuff. Man, like, the depth and player development has shown a lot this year, and it's something that stuck out to me, and I'm really thankful for it and very appreciative of it. And I'm excited to see what it continues to be. It's part of the reason why the draft is so exciting for the Bills every year, because they might get a Christian Benford in round 6, a Khalil Shakir in round 5, like these guys that they can get on day 3 and day 2, and it's exciting to kind of see what they blossom into. And again, it's not necessarily, wow, they got this guy. I don't want to set the table for that. Like, whoa, they can get all these all pros in round 6 because they got, Christian Benford there. But man, they've done a really good job with depth and player development and being able to stem the bleeding and mitigate losses when guys have gone down. And that's a huge, huge, huge kudos and testament to the coaching staff, the scouting department, everybody kind of putting the roster together and knowing what guys can be, and then the coaching staff getting them to what they can be and meeting some of those expectations. So huge, huge, huge piece. Sal coming in and saying, Ant, UB has an All-American linebacker. Sean Dolech, kid is going to be a good one. I saw some clips of him. I haven't watched any UB games this year. I haven't paid attention to UB in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I know he balled out last week, or a couple weeks ago, I saw some people talking about him. I hope, good for him. If he does, that's cool. I haven't watched him. I haven't seen him. I can't speak on him, but I'll take your word for it that he's going to be a good one. I hope he does. Maybe he can follow in the footsteps of Andreessen, or even better, or maybe top. I don't think anyone's ever going to top Khalil Mack coming out of UB with how good he was. But maybe kind of put himself into that type of conversation for best dudes to ever come out of UB. I was thinking about that the other day with Khalil Mack, because I live near UB. And I was driving by, and I drove by the stadium, and I was just thinking, like, man, like Khalil Mack played here. And just, I wanted Khalil Mack so bad in that draft when they traded up for Sammy. I really thought it was going to be for Khalil, and it was not. So on and so forth. I really thought they were going to get, oh man, good times, Rex Ryan. Good times with Rex. I'm going to throw up the banner that says Toodles, folks, because I'm going to start to wind down, and we're going to say goodbye on this episode. Before you leave, if you're here live, please, 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 and thank you. Drop a like on this video if you have not already. I really, really, really would appreciate likes, as does the entire brand. Likes are the lifeblood of these streams. They significantly help the algorithm and help the show and the entire brand to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So if you have not already, dropped a like on this video, whether you're watching live or watching later, please, 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 thank you. Drop a like on this video here on YouTube. Turn on notifications for the Disguise Coverage playlist. Subscribe to the Cover One channel. Both of those things here on YouTube. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool too. Please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show was. If you thought the show was terrible, tell your enemies and try and ruin their day by making them watch this show. I like this comment from Jason, who says 1 like equals 1 extra ornament on Ant's tree. I kind of should do that. That's funny. But some of these shows get like a couple hundred likes. I don't think I have enough ornaments unless they're really tiny. That'd be really funny. I kind of like this. I like this a lot. Jason saying, I need to write this down for when the draft comes to see if this is Buffalo delusion or if he is actually good. Yeah, I have to watch him. I can't comment. I haven't seen any UB stuff this year. Again, I always, even when I watch broadcast stuff, if I haven't seen the all 22, I'm not really going to comment on somebody. There's too much highlight scouting on broadcast, and even all 22. People watch all 22 now just so they can grab highlights and clip stuff, and they don't actually know what they're watching or talking about. So I haven't seen him. I haven't even seen him on broadcast, so I definitely got no comment. But yeah, I've heard some really good things from some Buffalo people. But to your point, it could be Buffalo delusion. I don't know. Oh, question here. Who do you think will stay in free agency next offseason for the Bills? I am not there yet in terms of thinking who will stay, who's going to go. I'm still analyzing the Bills this year and a multitude of teams. I am not in that spot, but I will be as we go forward. I'm sorry that I don't have that answer for you right now, but obviously I'll be locked in to kind of preview that when this season ends as we get towards the end of 2024 and into the beginning of 2025. Yeah, very excited for that. I love off-season time. Loved it ever since Madden. Man, good times. Good times. But so that'll do it for us here in this episode. I hope you folks enjoyed it. I hope you folks have a good Thanksgiving. I hope if you observe the holiday and you have that kind of set up. Oh yeah, no worries. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have an exact answer for you. I'm not in off-season mode yet in terms of looking. Here's these free agents. Here's what the cost is, the cap space, all of it. I have to physically turn my brain that way with how X's and O's and scheme and structure driven I am within the season. But yeah. Oh, RJ saying this year I made a point to watch as many Bulls games as possible. That linebacker, I'm not going to say his name because I don't know how to pronounce it. It's definitely legit in my eyes. Cool. Good to know. Oh, this is awesome. Carl says, I'm thankful that you, Ant, and your family are happy and healthy. I am also thankful that our entire Buffalo Bills team is healthy, and that makes us all happy. Fingers crossed that they stay healthy and happy. But thank you very much for that. I appreciate that for me and my family. I hope you and yours are doing well. Also now and throughout the entirety of the year and the years to come. Thank you very much for that. That's awesome, Carl. I appreciate you that. Appreciate you for that. Joe saying, next thing I'm thankful for, Dwayne Carter returning and reaching his potential. I'm telling you, man, I just think his potential is like a rotational body, which isn't bad. I don't think too highly of Dwayne Carter right now, but we'll see. We'll see. You never know. It's still early, even though it's also kind of not because of his age and how much he's played. And I think his ceiling is it is what it is, but we'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed and hope for Mr. Dwayne Carter. You never know. He's got a good head on his shoulders, works really hard, says and does all the right stuff. We'll see. We will see. Jason saying Ants crushing dreams. I'm sorry. John saying, so if the Bills can't get a bye, is that when they will rest everyone? They're going to need everyone healthy as possible. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if they can't get a bye, if they only lock up the 2, if it's the 2 or the 3 or something else. there's so much. I don't want to say anything and jinx anything, but I think there's so much left to be decided with where they settle in, where they fall in from a seed perspective, and then just bumps and bruises behind the scenes that we don't know about that they potentially want to nurse. So yeah, we will kind of see. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jason saying Ant crushing dreams right before the holidays. Yep, that's me. Dream crusher. That's me. Appreciate you, Troy. I see that nice comment that came through. Thank you very much. Nice from Ralph saying happy Thanksgiving to the Mafia. Now let's carve up the Niners. Go Bills. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night. Enjoy the rest of your holiday week. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Enjoy the food, the family, the football. Not great. Bears Lions, which I think could be fun because Caleb Williams still does some fun things and the Bears do some fun things. The afternoon game sucks. Cowboys Giants, both those teams are brutal. Dolphins Packers Thursday night, which could be kind of fun. And then some really great college football going over the weekend and some NFL stuff as well. So I'm excited for that. I appreciate the kind words from you, RJ, saying I'm thankful for yourself, Ant, and Cover One, the Discord chat, the show chats. Hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. Joe saying dream to crush ratio is high. Yeah, One Pie is known for their great cheese to sauce ratio. I am known for the dream to crush ratio. That is me. Jason says, and is both my dream and my crush. I like that. I live in the light and the shadows. Bit of both worlds. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy the weekend. Anything and everything in between. As always, I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. I will see you tomorrow for another episode of the Cover One Film Room. If not there, I will see you next week for another episode of Disguise Coverage. Follow me on Twitter at pro__ant. Find me on Blue Sky at proant. No underscores in that one on Blue Sky, just proant. If you need anything, get at me in the Cover One Discord. Get at me on Twitter. Get at me on Blue Sky. I think that will do it. Go to One Pie. Get some food. Donate to Toys for Tots. I'll see you when I see you. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.